Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon and The Blackest Heart, both books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Well, today I'm going to be talking about the top 10 books I read in 2021. I scrolled back through my entire history of video reviews for the year and counted about maybe 215 books that I had read this year. I read fast. I read between 15 and 20 books a month. That's no secret. I read about 100 pages an hour, so I can zoom through a 400-page book in an afternoon. Anyway, that's beside the point. We're talking about my top 10 books. Now, if you've followed the channel at all, you know it's hard for me to keep things just to a top 10. I didn't go overboard and do a top 17 or a top 27. I'm going to keep it to 10, but with two sort of honorable mentions. So let's start with the honorable mentions. Some of these books I read for the very first time this year. Some of these books were actually books that I was rereading and found to be equally as good and awesome as when I first read them, or they actually surprised me with the second read through. There's a couple books on that list that I read 20 years ago and were just kind of like, and then I just reread them and I was like, holy crap, this is awesome. There's also a few books on this list that you all recommended to me, and I want to thank you for that because I will be getting to those books in the list and we will talk about them. So let's talk about the honorable mentions. I've got 10, but I want to do 2 honorable mentions because I just couldn't leave them out because these books riveted me and I had to keep them on the list. The first one was Andy Weir's new book, Project Hail Mary. I loved The Martian. I thought this was just as good as The Martian. And if you want to watch my review of this, just type in my name, Durfee, and Project Hail Mary, and a detailed review of this book will come up. I just dug it. I wanted to give it a shout out because I thought it was a great follow-up to The Martian. Another book that I just was riveted to was book 2 of Fonda Lee's Jade Empire series. What is it called, actually? I don't know if it's the Jade Empire. The Green Bone Saga. I was way off. Book 2 of the Green Bone Saga, Jade War. Now, I read Jade City in 2020, so I could not include it on this list, but I did read Jade War this year, and I thought it was magnificent. If you want to see any of the reviews of any of these books, the detailed reviews, just type in my name and the title of the book. I swear to you people, the review will show up on your YouTube screen. So anyway, I just wanted to give a shout out to the Jade City, Jade War, and the Fonda Lee. It was great stuff. Let's get down to business. Let's do the top 10. We're going to start this top 10 in high fashion. This is a book that I've probably read 5 times in my life. Every time I read it, I just love it even more. Probably because when I first read it, I didn't work in a prison. Now that I've worked in a prison, the state prison, for about 15 years, this book means a lot more to me. And that is Stephen King's The Green Mile. If you followed my channel, you know I'm reviewing every Stephen King book in order of publication. Earlier this year, we got to The Green Mile. I reread this one again like I said, I have no idea how many times I've read it. But each time I read it, I just love how it portrays life in prison, life on death row, how it portrays the prison guards as not all being just complete doofuses. Like most books portray prison guards as being the stupidest people on the planet. Now, as truthful as that might be, it's nice to see Stephen King take a little sympathy with the prison guards once in a while and put some noble prison guards in a story. And so I like it. And this is a great prison story. Not quite as great as The Shawshank Redemption, which Stephen King also wrote, but certainly second best. And I've often thought of writing my own prison story, but every time I start to think of doing one, I look at Shawshank Redemption or I look at The Green Mile and realize Stephen King's already done it as good as it can be. So we'll see. We'll see if that ever happens. Okay, this next book, book number 9 on my list, is a book that I read probably 20 years ago and was just kind of like, it's all right. I mean, it was good enough to get me to read the rest of the series, but it wasn't like it didn't blow me away. I just read this a couple months ago, and it blew my fucking mind. I was so riveted and so engrossed in how awesome this was written and how great the story was. And you're going to be surprised when I hold it up. But that is Diana Gabaldon's first Outlander book, just titled Outlander. I wanted to reread all the books for the channel and leave a review, so I thought, well, I'm going to start at the beginning and reread Outlander. And I was listening to it on Audible. At the same time I was reading it, I was following along, and I was just like, every word is gorgeous, and every turn of phrase is beautiful. And the amount of research that Diana Gabaldon did for these books is magnificent. If you don't know what this book is about, it's about a woman in the 1940s who time travels back to the 1700s in Scotland. That's the basic gist of it. I loved this, reading it again. I loved it. First time I read it, yeah. Okay, now book number 8 is a book that I've probably read 4 times, and I loved it the first time I read it, and it just keeps getting more amazing each time I read it. And I read this and reviewed it earlier this year, and that is Bernard Cornwell's The Winter King. Book 1 in his Warlord Chronicles about King Arthur. Oh, if you think that the wordsmithing in Outlander is gorgeous and spot on, this is even better. I mean, Bernard Cornwell. Oh, if you want to see what it's like to live in medieval England, the time of King Arthur, and just how stark and grim and brutal it was, look no further than these books. Not only that, but it's got a great cast of characters, from Arthur to Guinevere to Lancelot to Galahad to Merlin to Durfee, not Durfee, but Durfee is the main character who tells the tale. Just a great, great book. And it's book 1 in a trilogy, and the other books are dope too. Let's talk about book number 7. The Power of the Dog. I read this for the second time this year, and it blew me away even more. The first time I read it, I was just like horrified. This book is about the drug cartels and the drug wars down in Mexico, and how America's appetite for illicit drugs just makes everybody's life in Mexico fucking miserable. And this is also a commentary on our failed war on drugs. I don't know if I need to say any more than that, but it is brutal. If you've ever watched the movie Cesario and its sequel, which I can't remember what that was called, both great movies about this very subject, this book makes those movies look like Sesame Street. This is just how hard, it's hard to read, folks. This is hard stuff to read. If you really want to know what it's like in law enforcement, dealing with that stuff, and what it's like to be in those Mexican cartel gangs, oh, Lord. Lord have mercy. This book scared the crap out of me. In fact, if you watched my top 20 most disturbing books of all time, this one was on it. Anyway, let's get to number 6. Number 6. Now, this is a book that one of you all recommended. One of y'all recommended this book, and I thank you for recommending it, because this series has now become one of my favorite historical series of all time. The book is Colleen McCullough's The First Man in Rome. This is book number 1 of her Rome series, and I think it's called The Masters of Rome. And right now it is 8 books long. And this is book number 1, and they are thick, 1,300 page books, and they are all about the rise of Julius Caesar and every character that surrounds him. From the moment of his birth to the moment of his death, everybody, Caesar, Brutus, Mark Antony, Cleopatra, Sulla, all of the people, all of the players, Cicero, I mean, everybody. And it's just so impeccably written, so detailed, and so amazingly researched. I couldn't even get over it. Number five, top 10 books. The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones, also published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press, who published my books. Anyway, this is a great, great horror novel. And I'm telling you, Stephen Graham Jones, I've read a bunch of his horror. He is going to be like the next Stephen King. This guy is that good. And this book is about nature, Native Americans, elks, elk and animals that come back to life. Horror. It's just strict horror. And there's some bloody scenes in this, and I loved every word of this. Very sparsely written. I mean, they're short. All of his horror novels are short, but man, the writing is razor sharp. Absolutely loved it. Now, the fourth book that I read this year, number 4 on my 10 list is... This is a reread. This was a book that I read a long time ago, probably the early 1990s, and I just reread it. Amazing. Shadow of the Torturer by Gene Wolfe. Oh my God. Talk about razor sharp writing. Gorgeous writing, beautiful writing, complex writing that's so great you can't even understand what's happening in the story. Go ahead and YouTube my name and Shadow of the Torturer. Watch that review of the book, because I can't even begin to describe what this book is about in the few minutes that I have here. So just trust me that this book, it's the first book in a 5-book series called The Earth of the New Sun, and it is just a great book. No, the Book of the New Sun. Book 1 in the Book of the New Sun, Shadow of the Torturer by Gene Wolfe. Anybody that knows anything about fantasy knows Gene Wolfe is just one of the best. Let's talk about my book number 3. It's my third favorite book of 2021. Well, it was the first 21 by Nikki Sixx. This was my most anticipated book of the year. And if you watched my review, I said that. I waited for a long time for this book to come out. I'm a huge fan of Motley Crue. We got the whole Motley Crue Pop-It series right there. This is Nikki Sixx's biography of the first 21 years of his life, where he went under the name, his real name, Frank Ferrano. This goes up to the very day, this is from the day he was born to the very day he changed his name to Nikki Sixx. And it's a fascinating look at a young guy that grew up in a small town in southern Idaho, a small Mormon community. He had dreams of just being a rock star. I really related to this book because I grew up in a small Mormon community in southern Utah, very similar to Jerome, Idaho, where Nikki Sixx grew up. And I really related a lot to this book. And I knew I would, because I knew a little bit of Nikki Sixx history before reading this. I just didn't realize how similar our lives would be. Now, if you want to see my review of this, again, type in my last name, Durfee, the first 21. The review will magically appear upon your screen. This is a great, great look at, and it's an inspirational story of just perseverance and just going for your dreams. I love those kind of books. My second favorite book that I read in 2021 is, again, it's a reread. I read it first in 2019, then I reread it again this year, and that is Tad Williams' Empire of Grass. This book just... Well, if you followed my channel, you know Tad Williams is one of my favorite writers. In fact, I've got his whole collection back here. Most of them signed. In fact, we can probably pull one of these out and show you that it's signed. Tad Williams I consider to be a good friend. Not only that, but if you want to watch our the panel that me and Tad Williams did at the Comic-Con. Me and Tad Williams did a How to Get Published panel at Comic-Con. It's a great video that I uploaded a few years back. But he signed all my books. He's a good friend of mine. And probably, along with Stephen King, my favorite writer of all time. But The Empire of Grass is book number 2 in his Last King of Austin Ard series. That is the trilogy that follows Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. Everything about this book is beautiful. It's beautifully written. Tad Williams has a way with words. In fact, Tad Williams was the first writer that taught me that words had magic, and the way that words fit together on a page could be beautiful and lyrical, and just one of the reasons I'm an author to this day is Tad Williams. So that was book number 2. What book was my favorite book of 2021? Well, it is all 12 C.J. Box Joe Pickett novels. If I was to seriously do the top 10 books that I read in 2021, every single one of them would be a C.J. Box book. But I can't do that. That's why I included different books. But this series, and this is a series that someone recommended to me on the channel, and thank God you recommended these C.J. Box books, because I have been in love with these. I have been devouring these books, and I read 12 of them this year. 12 of them. Every single one of them is a 10 out of 10 star read. C.J. Box Joe Pickett series, my number 1 read of 2021. All 12 books I will include in that. Start with book number 1. Open Season. It's now Joe Pickett, the main character in this series. He's a game warden in Wyoming. Different murders and different things happen up in his area of Wyoming, and every single book is better than the next. And the first one is one of the best mystery debut novels I've ever read. In fact, C.J. Box, I consider him to be like the Michael Jordan of mystery novels, in that everything he does seems so effortless. And it is hard to write a book and make the story look effortless to the reader. I mean, it's just amazing. This guy, the way he writes the story, and then not only with Joe Pickett, the game warden, we get his entire family that we get to learn about throughout this series. We get all of the bad guys that come back into the story, and all of the cops and other game wardens and sheriffs and people that live in his town. And it's just, I mean, right now there's 13, 14, 15, 16, about 20 books in the series. I'm 12 deep. Right now I'm 12 deep. You can see them all here. And we've got to give a shout out to the publisher for making all those spines match. And each one of the books has a lovely cover of Wyoming. So, my number 1 book that I read, favorite book, best book that I read in 2021 is C.J. Box, Joe Pickett series. All 12 of them could fit in my top 10 easily, but that would have meant we didn't get to see any of those other books. That's why I did this number 1 like this. Oh my God. If you have not read C.J. Box, Joe Pickett, you gotta start. You gotta start, folks. I think I'm done. That's it. We're done.